Back. We're joined by the National Publicity Secretary of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Mr. Felix Morka, joins us virtually on the program. Good morning, Mr. Morka. You're welcome.
Good morning, Coyote. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. We're just going to get right into it. Your party is in power, so naturally all eyes are on your party and by extension the president and majority of governors and lawmakers, I should say, who have been elected on the platform of your party. The biggest conversation right now in the country is insecurity. Yes, the president met APC governors from 6 states. Yesterday, he met the governor of Edo State, he met the governor of Ekiti, Kogi, Sokoto, Kebbi states in the presidential villa. And I must ask you, Mr. Morka, seeing all of the events around insecurity, the mass abductions, the killings, and the lack of arrests, I must say, particularly for the recent events, is it in Kwara, Kebbi? You are a lawyer and you understand the importance of deterrence, the importance of ensuring that whoever does the crime does the time. What do you think is going on, Mr. Morka?
Thank you very much, Coyote. Now, insecurity is a hard subject anywhere for government and for those who are affected by the citizens who fall victim to these mindless violence. Now, especially insecurity that has to do with terror and banditry. These are perpetrated by the very worst of people who take delight in bringing pain and suffering upon innocent people, especially. In recent cases we're discussing, children, babies generally. So these are really, scumbags who do this. And there are people who operate and live in the shadows, who, attack defenseless citizens and then disappear into the shadows, into the forests or wherever else that they hide away. And when these events occur, Coyote, we must not forget that, the lives and the safety of the children in these recent examples is priority, it's non-negotiable. You cannot do anything that really jeopardizes those children. So it's a tough one for even the very best, security people to deal with, where you have the task of, bringing children home safely, and also to make arrests, knowing that if you go there with, excessive violence, you may end up, in fact, putting in danger the very people that you have been tasked to rescue. So it's not easy. And I think that we must, really be patient with our law enforcement, with our security forces, as they, rid our country of this menace. But having said that, I'm quite certain that, the people who are involved, who put their lives on the line, and as a party, we're full of, our respect and commendation for all of, our troops, security forces who go out every day to try to keep us safe. I want to, believe that they know what they're doing, and that in the fullness of time, these people will be brought to justice. Because, like you said, indeed, for the crimes they've committed, they should and must be made, I think, to face the law and to have their day in court.
My reference, and I understand that the Niger case is an ongoing operation. So we'll set that aside. My reference is to the recent ones. Kwara State, the church in Eruku, where 2 people were killed. A lot of people were abducted, eventually released, but no word about the terrorists. In Kebbi State as well, students were kidnapped, released. In fact, what was said by the presidential spokesperson was, as the Nigerian forces were advancing, the terrorists were withdrawing, and then the children were rescued. So what then happened to those who were withdrawing? And I'm talking about the terrorists. What happened to them? Did they just disappear into thin air? So I'm not speaking about the ongoing operations. I'm talking about at least the Kwara the Kebbi State cases?
Coyote, look, the response I gave to your previous question does not change, significantly. The point here is that I'm not a law enforcement person, but I imagine, even based on my own experience in life, that when, people who commit these crimes, who, like I said, basically, strike where they strike and withdraw into the dens of the forests, it's not easy also for law enforcement, for the army to simply just, capture. I am quite certain, and I don't think this is something we should be commenting too much, on, that these efforts we're discussing are ongoing. When they produce results, even when arrests are made, usually these are not, necessarily subject of, immediate media review. Because, again, people who are arrested in these circumstances also have to be processed, identified, and interrogated. And, some of these things take time. Even when people, do housebreaking with, the common criminals, sometimes it takes, days, if not weeks, to get results. So I think we need to be patient. The good news is that, in some of these cases, thank God we are bringing home some of the victims, and, the idea, the president has given that marching order to, security forces to bring home everyone who is, caught in this web of, of really, really unjustifiable crime and criminality.
And to quickly follow up on that, if we consider the manner in which the Kebbi school girls were rescued, if we consider even that, the NSA had told us, had assured us just a few days ago that the St. Mary's Catholic school children would be returned, and we have seen it happen. Can Nigerians now go ahead and conclude that yet another round of ransoms have been paid if the process of rescue is not going to be made public, and by extension, kidnapping and terrorism is being emboldened in the country?
No, again, I'm not sure that I can speculate as to the modalities or the circumstances in which these releases were secured. I have not been briefed about that, and I'm not, quite frankly, competent, to be briefed in that sense about whether or not, ransom was paid. And I don't think it's safe for us to just make those conclusions. Look, but I think that, Nigerians, because of what's going on, have developed, I think, that reactionary disposition to speculate or to imagine, what's going on behind the scenes. But again, like I said, I think that, at some point, the NSA and the, responsible managers of our, security system will, come forward to give us more information about what's really going on in terms of, the processes by which, these releases were, obtained, and the efforts to bring the perpetrators to justice. But I think one thing is clear, that is the resolve of Mr. President, that, we must defeat this terror. And let me say this, that, one potent tool for combating terror anywhere in the world, whether it's in the United States, after 9/11 or, in some other theaters where this has occurred, is that those who are targeted, who are, are under attack by these, criminals, usually, they bind together, they come together, they stand together shoulder to shoulder in unity to deliver a very unequivocal message to the perpetrators that this will not be tolerated. People coming to pick our children from their schools, they are enemies of the state and enemies of the people. So we must come together to speak in one voice. So, but when I see sometimes people, maybe because of, I think, this whole, social media, dimension to our lifestyles today, people literally, share and circulate information in a way that suggests that some might even be, celebrating some of these things. I think we need to really calm down and understand that we are all implicated in this. This is our country. It's our only country. We have a president who is showing leadership. We have our troops who are fighting really hard. And by the way, let me comment on something I heard over your paper review, where someone was saying, I think it was the ADC, that issued statements suggesting that, look, if Nigeria can intervene in Benin to help restore democracy and law and order, that they wonder why we have not stamped out terror and banditry in our own country. Listen, when armies confront conventional armies, the rules of engagement are known. They are trained to fight those kinds of conventional warfare. Listen, terror is still a new, if you will, surge and scourge that is, confronting the world, where you fight asymmetrically, asymmetric warfare, where you don't even know who the enemy is, where, you see men who dress as women just to penetrate, civilian populations and do harm. It's not that simple. People who are embedded in communities, who live within, really ordinary communities, yet are armed and are dangerous. It's not the same. So I think we should, stop, making this false equivalence, as though because Nigeria intervened as we did commendably, heroically in Benin to restore democracy. Therefore, we should vilify them because we have, the war on terror that is still unfolding. Listen, the United States, that has the greatest army in the world, has not defeated terror everywhere it has confronted terror. It's, an ongoing, scourge, and we need to be mindful of that.
Well, it's difficult not to make comparisons, Mr. Morka. Speaking of which, let me read to you the statement of the president in which he welcomed the release of the St. Mary's Catholic School children. He says, "My directive to our security forces remains that all the students and other abducted Nigerians across the country must be rescued and brought back home safely. We must account for all the victims." Mr. President didn't say, go get the kidnappers and end this menace of terrorism. During the Yelwata attack, he asked the security agents pointedly, why have no arrests been made? And not long after that, we saw the Inspector General of Police say to Nigerians that some arrests have been made, but there have been no prosecutions. So where is the firmness that is expected in dealing with this terror on Nigerians?
You just referenced a public statement that was issued on this matter by the president. You have not referenced the directives, the order he has given, or let me say, may have given to our security operatives, direct commands to them, which may not be subject of a public statement like you have just referenced. You see, look, if your question is to suggest that maybe there's some selective directives given to rescue and not to pursue, look, the statement you referenced is not evidence of that. And I don't think it should be, quite frankly, something that we should be discussing. Because, there's so much about security that is not, disclosed or disclosable to the public. Because you do that, you compromise sometimes, even the action you are seeking to execute. I think we need to, give the benefit of the doubt to not just Mr. President, but to, our security chiefs and, leaders and operatives who are, not sleeping at night, really fighting every moment to ensure that we are kept safe. I think that, that should be sufficient as a public statement. It shouldn't come with all the elements of instructions or directives or commands we, the president, may have, in fact, issued to our law enforcement, operatives on this subject.
All right, Mr. Morka, I know that the issue of conversation around national security can be a bit tricky because of certain things that may not be in public. But I think the reason why Nigerians and even us are pushing to the issues around deterrent is because it's to rebuild public confidence. We can't keep seeing these strings, a series of abductions, and we're not seeing these people being brought to justice. How soon is a different matter altogether. So it is important the government gets that feedback to say that, to know that it is important we get to see who is responsible for what and how far it goes. Perhaps that's why that, conversation around what's happening to the kidnappers and the abductors is quite important. And if a lot of people or Nigerians are making that request, I think it's only natural that the president or the leadership of the country looks for a way to show response to that effect.
No, I agree. I agree completely with you that ultimately it's important that we find, arrests, and bring to justice everyone who is involved in the entire chain of terror, whether they are financing terror, whether they are in fact boots that are attacking our people. They must be brought to justice. That's something I'm sure, and I know that the president is committed to doing. But again, let me remind us, even as someone who is not trained in that tradition of law enforcement, but I can imagine that based on what we know, the information that is publicly available in terms of some of the groups that are active in these events, let's not forget that where one terror group is involved in multiple attacks and multiple kidnappings, and at any point in time, some of their members are holding some of these innocent people. The vulnerability and the sensitivity of those operations, look, I can only just imagine what it's like. Because, if you go hard in that moment where our people are in custody, these are the same people who command and control this, really, slimy, horrific events. So I think that in the judgment of our law enforcement, we must defer to them in terms of how they calibrate their, activities, their, and how they scale up their, response and pursuit of these people. If you have 100, children in the custody of the same or related, of terror organizations, and you are, putting fire on some of them. Listen, even just from watching movies, it's obvious that sometimes they also, exert pressure by, issuing threats, against those who are in their custody, because we don't know who they are, and ultimately we will know. This government is determined to, I think,
Morka,
these
my apologies, because of time,
and to bring them to justice.
Yes, as we wind down, perhaps is the last question on this because of time. I don't know whether it's let me put it this way. I think we had Daniel Bwala here, who also made statement close to that. But what we've also referenced and seen is the fact that there seems to be a correlation or a string of relationship between when we are approaching a major poll and a surge in insecurity. And I see it as crude politics as far as the African continent is concerned, maybe using Nigeria as a case study. Where we know what happened with Goodluck Jonathan, we know what happened with former President Muhammadu Buhari, and now we're seeing this again. So in your view, what has to be done for us to open a new... Is it that from the reading of the government, is it that we are beginning to see insecurity as a tool for some form of political agitation? Because when coincidence is excessive, the Englishman says it's deliberate.
Look, that is a very valid concern. There are many who have associated the upsurge in violence, recent violence, to again political pressures or calculations. That is unfortunate, quite frankly. And I think there are signs that maybe people want to make political capital of this season in order to affect the upcoming elections. That is really despicable. And for those who are involved, they really must be ashamed of themselves. That you try to manipulate a system, game a system for political calculations to advantage. Look, if that is occurring, I think those who are involved really need to rethink. But this is really about our people. The same people any political person seeks to govern, assuming that they seek, for office and get elected. It's wrong. There's no other way to describe it if that is occurring. And those who are involved should be, I think, traced. If they are implicated in some of these things, I think they should really be made to face the very heavy hand of the law.
All right, Mr. Morka, quite a number of issues to unpack, but it's okay that we stay with security. I think it's good to see that all of the conversation around 2027 have tapered down a bit. I know it's still happening behind the scenes, but at least it's not right there in our faces when we have bigger issues to confront. But we have to thank you so much. I know we'll have a few more conversations before the year ends. We've been speaking with the National Publicity Secretary of the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, Mr. Felix Morka. Wish you the very best, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll take a moment now, and when we return, recent events in Benin Republic still raising concerns. We'll speak about that in a moment. Stay with us.